This video I'm going to show you how to add more logic to a Tasmota light switch. As you can see here, if I hold down any of the buttons, I can make them all turn on or off. By default, Tasmota does not handle if statements or expressions, so we need to compile Tasmota ourselves to include these functions. It's quite easy to do and I'll show you later. So this is the rule that will control the light switch. I've formatted it into little parts so it's easier to understand. So in the rule we've got three variables, var1 to var3. These will keep a record of the state of each button. So when the device powers on, it first assigns the button's states to each variable. So whenever each button is turned on, the variables get set to 1, and when the buttons are turned off, the variables are set to 0. These lines are like the ones before, but not just at boot. Next checks if a button is held down, so this is where it says state is equal to 3. So if all the variables are in an off state, we want then to power on all of the lights. If you note the AND operator, this is to check all the variables. Else, if this is not true, we then perform another check to see if any of the buttons are turned on. If so, we will then turn off all the lights. So for this we use the OR operator, as we are checking if any of the lights are on. These if statements are then repeated for the rest of the buttons 2 and 3. Where you see backlog 0, this just means to queue a list of commands to run all at the same time. Backlog on its own, this would queue the commands one after another. So just to demonstrate expressions being disabled on the default Tasmota firmware, if we just type in the console var5 equals 1 plus 1, without expressions it doesn't understand there's any maths involved, so it just stores the literal string 1 plus 1. So when expressions are enabled, it does understand 1 plus 1 and gives the value of 2. This can help when you are writing more advanced rules. So to compile Tasmota, we first just need to download VS Code. Search for this in Google and just install it. So once it's installed, click the Extensions button from the left toolbar. Search for Platform IO and just install this extension. We next need to install JIT for Windows, so search for this in Google, download and install it. During the setup, just click Next through all of the defaults for JIT. For the text editor, I'll just select VS Code. We now need to download the Tasmota source code. So if you just open Command Prompt or PowerShell into a directory where you want to download the source. So in File Explorer, I'll just hold left shift and right click. Then I can select Open PowerShell or Terminal. So in the shell, if you just type in JIT and then space clone, then we just need to open a browser and navigate to the Tasmota GitHub page. Once you're there, click the code button and then just click on the copy icon. And then if you go back into Terminal and just paste this address, now press enter and it should download the source code. So if you just go back to VS Code and open the Tasmota folder, which was downloaded earlier. We'll first just note what variant of Tasmota is installed on your device. So if you just access the Tasmota web interface of the device, click the information button, and then if you just look at where it says program version, so my device is just the default Tasmota binary. If you go back to VS Code, click the Platform IO button from the left toolbar. This will now display the different variants of Tasmota that can be built. If I expand the default Tasmota variant, you'll see the actions where you've got build and clean. These we'll use later. Click on the Explorer button on the left toolbar. Expand the Tasmota folder now from the tree. Then if you just find the file user_config_override.h file. We now need to add the extra functions to the build. So if you just copy and paste from the description, or if you go to the Tasmota rules page and copy the code inserts from there. So just paste it into the file like so. Then click File and Save. Next, just go to the my user_config.h file. So in order for this build to be successful, I've got to free up a small amount of space by disabling a feature that's not needed for my Tasmota device. So if you just search for use_WS2812, I just comment out this line, and on the line it'll also specify how much space the feature will take. So in this example, it just frees up 5 kilobytes. So once I've done that, I'll just click File and Save again. Now go back to the Platform I/O button on the left toolbar. Then find your Tasmota variant, so mine is just the normal Tasmota 1. If you expand that and then just click on where it says Build. So this can just take a few minutes to build. So once it's built, access the Tasmota source folder in File Explorer. For mine, I put the source in the Downloads folder. So once you're in the Tasmota source folder, click into the Build Output folder, then just click on Firmware. So this is the Tasmota bin file that's just been compiled. I'll just rename this to Tasmota_expressions just to avoid any confusion. So to flash the compiled binary that we've just created, we first have to flash the Tasmota minimal binary. This is just so there's enough space for the flash to occur. So if you go back to the Tasmota GitHub page and then just click on the releases link, then click the tasmota-minimal.bin.gz file to download it. Once downloaded, extract the binary from the archive. Then if you go to your Tasmota device web interface page, and then on the main menu, click where it says Firmware Upgrade, and then we just need to flash the minimal binary first. So once the minimal binary file's flashed, the page should refresh, and then you'll be notified at the top where it says you're on the minimal firmware. So on the main menu again, if you click on Firmware Upgrade, we can then flash our compiled binary from the Tasmota source folder. So once this is flashed, we can check the compiled firmware and just to make sure expressions are working correctly. So on the main menu, if you just click where it says console, and then we just need to type in var5 equals 1 plus 1. So you should now see the result, which should be 2 on the console. So this means that expressions are now working correctly. So now we just need to configure the device and the rules. So on my 3-button light switch, we just need to make each button to have a hold function. So we just type in switch mode 1 space 5. Then we just need to do the same for the other buttons. So switch mode 2 space 5 and then switch mode 3 space 5. So now we just need to change the amount of time it takes for the button hold function to activate. If you type in set option 32 and then space 2. So 10 would be 1 second. And I've just got it at 0.2 of a second, and press enter. And now just copy the rule from the description of the video and paste it into the console. This rule's for a 3-button switch, so you might need to tweak it a little bit. And finally, we just need to enable that rule, so if you just type in rule space 1 and then press enter. And that's it, this should be working now. Thanks for watching.